Coach, when we start, if you would just want to start with a few comments and then
I will.
Questions. Yep. Well, let's go ahead and get going. We'll let Jackson join in progress.
Okay, guys. First of all, I'd just like to make a couple comments about Coach Leach. Dear colleague of mine, had great sense of pride in the state of Wyoming. And I'll just make a couple comments about him because I think he really was an iconic figure in college football. I first came to know about Coach Leach when he was hired by Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. And I looked at his resume. I was at Nebraska at the time and saw that he had attended Pepperdine Law School, and my college roommate was a classmate of his. And so I asked my classmate or my roommate what his thoughts were, and he said he's certainly an eccentric person. He constantly was chewing big ballpoint pens to where they were no longer recognizable. And he said he was somewhat eclectic, which all very accurate. Later, I would watch them when he became a head coach at Texas Tech, and I would cringe because the ball would be on their own 15-yard line. It would be fourth down, and he'd be launching one up. I often wondered what his defensive coordinator thought during that time. And we had some spirited competition when I was calling defenses and he was calling offenses. And then our friendship was refreshed and renewed when he went to Washington State. We had a couple games while he was here. It was always interesting. I could even just maybe pick up this card while you have all these NFL guys have their game plan and we have a big sheet. Mike would have a card about like this, but he really was brilliant how he operated. He had a great passion for the Cowboys. He constantly followed our football team. He was always sending texts. He would say he was a proud citizen of the state of Wyoming and pulled hard for the Cowboys always. Somewhat unique. Mike and I were sharing a couple of adult beverages at the Fiesta Bowl with a couple other guests who will remain anonymous. And Mike became impassioned as the night went along. And as Wazoo was getting ready to play us in Laramie, he was asking very passionately that he wanted to address the Cowboy football team the morning of the game, which I declined. And it was conventional wisdom would say that you wouldn't allow that. And so I held firm, but to this day, I regret maybe our players not having an opportunity to hear some golden nuggets from Coach Leach. I can say this, Mike did things his way. He had strong convictions. He was for the betterment of college football. He did not waver on his convictions. He always stood for what was right in his mind. And it's a sad day when I heard his passing. So I just wanted to make those statements about Mike because, as many of you know, spent time in Cody and Saratoga. I loved our state and had a great passion for college football. I'll go ahead and make a couple comments. First of all, we couldn't be more thrilled to go to the Arizona Bowl. That bowl game, in my mind, is really operating at a very high level. Some of the things, the people that they have there that are in place do an excellent job staging the event. A bowl game is a celebration for the teams that are in it and also for a celebration of the community. And so to give a little bit of a history on how bowl games at one times were, they were part of exactly what I just said. A recognition of two really good football teams and then a community embracing those two teams and then celebrating a game. And that's truly what the Arizona Bowl has done. The community is well vested in the event, how they stage the event, from activities for the players, the accommodations, the practice sites, the game day and the game day venue is certainly first class. And so we were really excited about the invitation. We're also excited about playing Ohio. The University of Ohio enjoys a long history of excellent football. Tim Alvin is a dear friend of mine. Tim and I worked together at North Dakota State. He served as our offensive coordinator. And then we also worked at the University of Nebraska. And so, great deal of respect for Tim and the job he's doing. They won their division and played in the championship game. And they have an excellent football team. We have an excellent football team as well. But I do want to make a couple comments about some of the information that I've gleaned in short order. First of all, C.J. Harris hasn't started a lot, but started the last couple games. Very capable quarterback, running back. Bangora, I think I'm saying that name correctly, is their leading rusher. Really explosive rusher, and they have a capable group of receivers. Wigless is their starting receiver, but they have several other receivers that they're able to be very effective. Over on defense, they play excellent defense. They've got a tandem linebacker. Thompson and Houston are both excellent backers, and Floyd's doing a great job as a strong safety as well. So really competitive football team. It's going to be having the makings of a great game in Tucson. And we are certainly excited about the invitation, excited about playing the Bobcats. So at this time, I'm going to open it up to some questions that are out there.
You guys just raise your hand and coach will call on you.
Okay, Ryan, you shot your hand up first there.
Craig, who's going to play running back for you? Can you kind of elaborate on?
No, we're gonna hold our cards pretty close to the vest. We'll keep Tim guessing out there. We'll be in great shape, but I'm not going to divulge that. You'll find out on game day. Cody.
Hey, Craig, Tom Berman, we talked to him last week, and he mentioned a couple of things. He said you guys have to get better at the wide receiver spot, and the passing game as a whole needs to improve. Is that the emphasis, and what will it take to get this passing game really going?
Well, there have been times during the year, Cody, I think we've thrown the ball effectively. We were certainly out of kilter against Fresno, and I don't think Boise was really a clear indication of where we're at. I can appreciate Tom. He's the athletic director. I can appreciate his understanding of football. Without question, we need to throw the ball better, but more than anything else, we've got to score points, Cody. And throwing the ball does open up an opportunity to do that, but we certainly need to be more balanced of what we were. A lot of times I tend to gravitate towards completion percentage. However, I think sometimes that can be somewhat short-sighted if you're throwing a bunch of bubble screens for 2 yards. We certainly need to generate some explosive plays as well. Bowl games give us a great opportunity, Cody, to look where we're at. And then, you've got several practices, which we've been focused on balancing that between that and recruiting. So we're making progress there. We're going to have practice today. And we'll go into some deep preparations for the Bobcats now, but we've got to get better at that. Certainly having Andrew back under center, I think, can have a big impact. But once again, Fresno's turning out to be an excellent team, but we were certainly off kilter and put the ball in harm's way. And, between the schematics of taking deeper shots and then throwing the ball in the mini field, we're working hard at that.
Coach, I think Michael Lev has a question there.
What's that?
Michael Lev, I believe, has the next question.
Okay, Michael, go ahead, Michael.
Hey there, Coach. Thanks for doing this. We had one of these with your counterpart, Coach Albin, earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, hard to remember. But anyway, he told this story about how the Nebraska coaching staff got let go, I guess, in 2003. He was just kind of starting his career on the FBS level, and he was really kind of feeling down about it. He mentioned how you had come to talk to him several times to boost his spirits. I was hoping you could just share kind of what your message was to him.
Coach Albin, he's a loyal guy, and it was tough for him that year. I believe I had taken the job up at North Dakota State, and our coordinator knew him too, Jim Burrow, who happens to be Joe Burrow's father. I flew down, met with he and his wife at the house, talked to him about, he was really loyal to Coach Solich. but I talked to him about how it was really important to stay in coaching and stay active in coaching. And so we had an opportunity for him at NDSU, which he took. And it was a great experience for both of us. It was 1 year. I knew he was not going to be with us a long time, but he certainly helped our program. And I think that year also was refreshing for him as well. And the one thing that when you're coaching, there's two kinds of coaches, those who are going to be fired and those who have been fired. And, we always give this message to our players saying, hey, don't get too down, stay in the fight, which Tim did. And I can tell you a story about Tim, though. He was so enthusiastic. He was calling plays up in the press box, and we scored a touchdown, and he ran all the way down the steps. I looked and I was, what the hell is he doing on the sidelines? He was banging everybody on the shoulder, and he ran all the way up to the top of the steps, and we had to get the oxygen tank out. Otherwise, he may not have made it. So he's very enthusiastic. I don't think that's probably changed.
Alex, do you have a question?
Yeah. Hey, Greg, I just had a quick question for you. So you mentioned the practices going on right now. So how different do these practices kind of look with all the departures and injuries, and how important are these practices for some of these younger guys in the program right now?
Yeah, great question, Alex. We're striking a balance. We've been actively recruiting and then having some practices, and they've not been super lengthy, but to make sure our players are engaged with the fundamentals of football. Certainly as you, and not only Wyoming, but guys, you take a look around the country, the lay of the landscape, there's guys coming and going constantly. And so it's certainly for an older guy like myself to evolve, I wouldn't say has been a pleasurable challenge, but it certainly has been a challenge. And so we've composed practices to highlight, the guys that are out there. And then we've also taken time to given practice repetition to some true freshmen who basically have served on the scout squad, and they've just been going out there running off somebody's either offense or defense. And now we're having them being able to re-engage with some fundamentals with what we're teaching and giving them some coaching. And one of the things great also about the Arizona Bowl is the date that they have their game, I think is really ideal. I mean, because you're able to integrate recruiting, you're able to spread out some practices. Our guys are going to be able to be here, and then they're going to go home for Christmas and then join us in a great place like Tucson. And so that length of span there is really, really excellent. And so that's another really benefit of the bowl game. And we're certainly utilizing these practices to the best of our ability, Alex.
Cody?
Greg, you weren't always a fan of the portal, probably still not a gigantic fan, but can you describe what that adds as far as the workload goes to your staff and early signing day right around the corner? And do you think there'll ever be a time where staffs are going to have to hire a transfer portal guy?
Well, I think you're behind on that. That's already been in place at some places. From what I gathered from some dear friends, there's some schools that have a whole department of which they've hired, and very much like the NFL, where they have different, they have a scouting department that works on college and a personnel department that's constantly culling through the NFL guys. You're seeing that already. We've allocated more time to that, and I think last year's an indication that we're evolving. We're pleased with the guys that we were able to add. And that's going to be no different this year, Cody. It's just going to be kind of a blend. I think it would be a misstep for us if we would choose to go away from the scholastic model of high school recruiting, particularly, from some of the guys that we've had on our team. But to supplement our team is going to be important, and to identify some of the needs and some of the deficiencies we've had. I know that we've been able to purchase some software that's allowed us to cull through when some guy gets in the portal. We've been able to watch quite a bit of footage on them on live game repetition. And then the other thing we strive to do, Cody, is make sure that we're vetting all the guys that are in there. And typically, there's a pretty tight-knit circle in college football. If we don't know a lot about the guy. We're going to make sure we get some really, really accurate character assessments from people that we really know well. So that's been our approach. We're going to continue to evolve. I don't think, there's, one school down in Texas went complete portal recruiting a whole year. I think that would be a misstep, but to say that we're just going to stick to our guns and not identify some guys in the portal would be shortchanged our program.
Tracy?
Yeah, Coach, when you look at this game, and with a lot of the younger players you're going to wind up playing that maybe we haven't seen before, how important is this for you as far as getting ready for start to get ready for next year, as well as the bowl game's concerned?
Well, you strike a balance, Tracy. First of all, we've talked to our players about it's a reward to be in this game. So we're going to make sure that, they have an enjoyable time. We also strike a balance to do everything we can to win the game. But there's also part of a transition that you begin to kind of turn the page as far as working into the next year. And I'm not saying it's going to be, I know Bill McCartney one year put a whole new complete offense in as they got ready for the Orange Bowl. We're not doing that, but we're looking at what we've done well, what we need to adjust, and then inserting some players who we may not normally be in position to play. So we're going to look at that as a big advantage as we get going into the, this next 23 football season.
The next thing is, as big as your offense has been built around the running game, how much do the transfers are going to impact you in that regard? Are you going to have to change approach there?
I don't think we really need to change the approach. One of the things that we have not done, Tracy, is access a lot of guys in the portal in the offensive line. We've developed that group, and that's where the running game really gets started. Many of the runs that we had, if you watch some of the productive runs, really the running back at that time didn't have to even break a tackle or two, and that could be a compliment to the guys up front. But we're always going to look for a balance between a talented guy that may come in and join our football team that could be at the running back spot. Certainly our depth is lighter than what we've been, and we have typically run with two guys at that spot. And so you'll see us actively seek that position in this next year's class.
Ryan?
Craig, just to follow up on Mike Leach, Michael Lev can speak to this as well. He was a media's dream, obviously, with some of his quotes and stories and stuff, but from a defensive mind, schematically, can you talk about how his air raid changed the sport at all levels?
I think it did, and I witnessed it and felt it. Mike had the ability, and to coin a phrase, he could take things that were complicated and make them simple. Almost all the routes and the route trees that he had, those were all installed during his fall camp, and he had answers, but he wasn't constantly tinkering with tons of new things. And so, he was brilliant at stretching the field vertically and horizontally. But what also people don't understand, like when we played him, he came out and ran the ball down our throat. And so, I think he just had a great pulse on. He's a genius, and was a genius, and he left us too soon. He left an indelible impression. If you look at his tree of his quote disciples, they're some of the forward-thinking people within our game right now. And so he had a huge impact on that. And I will say this: I know you guys probably didn't have a chance to interview him much. He was always certainly, somebody that could be quotable, and he didn't care about that. But heaven forbid if any media person ever tried to get in a verbal jousting match with him, because he was going to break their sword in short order. Mike was unbelievably light on his feet, and he had a quick wit about him, but he had a sharp tongue.
Cody?
Speaking of relationships, Craig, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Frank Zolich? I'd imagine he was probably one of the first names that came to mind when you heard that you guys were playing Ohio.
It was. I know Frank's living right now in Boise. Frank and I worked together a long time, and Frank served as a president of the AFCA, and later on I served, was on the board with him. I always appreciated, he was an Ohio guy, grew up in Cleveland, so the Ohio program was a great fit. I do know he was nominated for the Coaches Hall of Fame. I don't believe he was selected on the first ballot, but a prince of a guy. He's getting older in years, and I certainly want to wish him well.
Other questions for Cody?
Craig, I know you can't talk about it a lot, but it appears you guys have 11 verbal commits for this class. Do you have a number that you expect to hit?
You know what? That's kind of a moving target, Cody, and that's just not coach speak. But we're going back and forth on saying, okay, do we take a portal guy at this position, or do we take a high school guy, or do we take a junior college guy? And so, we're going to know a lot more. And like this weekend's the last weekend that guys can take an official visit, and then signing dates coming up. But then there's a window right after the first of the year that you can have portal guys on your squad. And then the other factor is you have certain guys on your team who they've graduated and they have an option to come back and play another year. Some of them are choosing to do that. Some of them are looking at saying, okay, I'm graduating. I've got a meaningful degree from Wyoming. Am I going to play another year of college football, or am I going to start in my professional career? And so we've been trying to get a baseline on that. We're pleased with 11 right now. I can think that that's going to go up some, but I don't think you're going to see that number reach into, say, like the old days when we were going out and recruiting 23 high school guys. I just don't think that's where we're at right now. So it'll creep up some.
Alex?
Yeah, Craig, I just was just wondering, so how much with the Rourke kid, the quarterback, Curtis Rourke, not playing, how much does Ohio's offense kind of change? I think CJ Harris is more of a dual threat. So, I mean, what are you kind of preparing for in terms of what you're going to see out there?
Well, you're gonna see some things change, but Coach Albin ran that offense for a long, long time. And so there's things that we have in our library that he's leaned on. I even see some elements of, some option elements from Nebraska. CJ's an excellent quarterback. And, I think sometimes we do a disservice when you hear a guy say, well, they're the dual threat. And that's just almost like code for saying he can't throw very well. And that's just not the case here. We think CJ's an excellent quarterback.
Cody?
Greg, I don't know how much you're at liberty to talk about this, but was Andrew maybe more injured than we even knew about? And what was your assessment of him from a solid middle part of the year to maybe what happened down the stretch a little bit?
Well, I think this, he was cleared from concussion protocol and was certainly healthy going into the Fresno game. But what I did notice was, the number of practice days that he missed and trying to get up to speed against Fresno on the road. I mean, he was well below his best. There were times in the middle of the year that I thought he was, really, really talented. Even at the Tulsa game, I thought he threw the ball well. Against Air Force, he operated the ball, and he played well against Utah State. But that concussion, Cody, while he was completely healed from the concussion, he didn't have a library of experience, say like Josh Allen had when he was here. There just wasn't that many. So when he missed on that, I think it really hurt him against Fresno. And these practice repetitions have been helpful for him. And we're anticipating he's going to play really well against Ohio.
Other questions for Coach?
Okay, gentlemen. Once again, thanks for all the interest. Once again, we're excited about playing the University of Ohio, or OU as they call it in Ohio. And we're excited about our participation in the Arizona Bowl. We have tons of fans that are down there. I know there's still some tickets available. it's going to be a great time atmosphere. And I just want to leave a message to Governor Gordon, maybe talk to the National Guard to make sure somebody turns the lights out, because I don't think there are going to be many people left in the state of Wyoming. Bye now.
Thank you, Craig.